The book that predicted everything. What if a book written 2,000 years ago by a prisoner on a remote island already described in terrifying detail the world you are living in right now? What if the cashless economy, the digital ID, the global surveillance grid were all prophesized chapter by chapter in the last book of the Bible? Because here's what they don't want you to connect. Revelation chapter 13 doesn't just talk about demons and dragons. It talks about a system, a global economic system, a mark, a number, and control over every human being on earth. Who can buy, who can sell, and who will be left with nothing. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you will never look at your phone, your bank account, or the news the same way again. The book of Revelation, known in Greek as the Apocalypsis, meaning the unveiling, is the final and most debated book of the Christian Bible. It was written by the Apostle John around 95 AD, while he was exiled on the island of Patmos under the reign of Emperor Domitian. For centuries, theologians, scholars, and prophecy students have wrestled with its imagery: beasts rising from the sea, a dragon giving power to a world ruler, a mark placed on the right hand or forehead without which no one can participate in commerce. But what was once considered purely symbolic or confined to ancient Rome is now being read with fresh and alarming eyes in the age of biometric data, CBDC, central bank digital currencies, and the most sophisticated surveillance infrastructure humanity has ever built. Chapter 13 of Revelation describes in breathtaking detail two beasts. The first rises from the sea, a political and military world power given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. The second rises from the earth, a religious or ideological power that enforces the agenda of the first, performing signs and wonders to deceive the masses. And then comes the mark. Verse 16 and 17 state with chilling clarity, "It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark." 2,000 years ago, this was unimaginable. Today, it reads like a policy brief from the World Economic Forum. This is not coincidence. This is prophecy. And in this 6-part series, we are going to decode it, piece by piece. The Beast from the Sea, Global Power and the New World Order. In our last segment, we introduced Revelation 13, the chapter that describes a world-controlling system with uncanny parallels to our modern global order. Now, let's look at the first beast. And when you hear what it represents, you will understand why the most powerful institutions on earth do not want you reading this chapter. Revelation 13:1 paints a vivid and disturbing portrait. "And I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name." Throughout prophetic tradition, the sea is a symbol of nations, peoples, and the chaotic mass of humanity. A beast rising from it signals a power born out of geopolitical turmoil, emerging not from a single nation, but from the confluence of many. The 10 horns and 7 heads have fascinated scholars for millennia. Some identify them with historical empires: Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. Others see them as a blueprint for a future confederacy of global power. But what both interpretations agree on is this: the beast represents consolidated, centralized, multinational authority. Sound familiar? Consider the architecture of today's global governance. The United Nations, founded in 1945, now claims authority on international law, human rights, and global security. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank control the financial bloodstream of developing nations. The World Trade Organization regulates how every country on Earth conducts commerce. The World Health Organization, as we saw dramatically during recent years, can declare a global emergency and reshape the policies of 194 countries overnight. None of these institutions were elected by the people. None of them can be voted out, and all of them are moving steadily, deliberately toward deeper integration. The phrase New World Order, once dismissed as a conspiracy theory, has been openly used by world leaders including George H.W. Bush, Henry Kissinger, Gordon Brown, and Klaus Schwab. In 1991, Bush Sr. declared from the floor of the U.S. Congress a new world order where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause. Schwab, founder of the Great Reset, calls for the fusion of physical, digital, and biological identities, a world where every transaction, every movement, every decision is tracked, analyzed, and potentially controlled by a global technocratic elite. Revelation 13:7 says, "The beast was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation." In 95 AD, that was theologically audacious. In 2024, it is an organizational chart. The beast from the sea is not a monster from a fantasy novel. It is a system. It is being built, and it wears a suit and tie. The beast from the earth: ideology, religion, and digital deception. The first beast controls the bodies, armies, borders, economies. But the second beast controls the minds. And in a world of algorithms, artificial intelligence, and social media manipulation, the second beast may already be whispering in your ear. Revelation 13:11 introduces a second, subtler creature. Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. The imagery is deliberate and deeply unsettling. A lamb, the universal symbol of innocence and peace, even of Christ himself, but with the voice of a dragon. This beast does not conquer through military might. It persuades, it deceives, it performs signs and wonders to convince the world to worship the first beast willingly. In classic theological interpretation, this figure is often called the false prophet, a religious or ideological system that provides the spiritual and moral justification for the political beast's authority. Think state-sanctioned religion. Think propaganda. Think the marriage of ideology and power. But look at the modern landscape and the parallels become stunning. Today's most powerful ideological forces are not churches with steeples, they are platforms with servers. Google, Meta, X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube collectively shape the beliefs, values, and political views of billions of people daily. These platforms decide what is misinformation and what is truth. They decide who is amplified and who is silenced. They perform the modern equivalent of calling fire down from heaven. Viral moments, trending narratives, orchestrated consensus, all to direct public attention and allegiance. And now, artificial intelligence has entered the picture. Generative AI can create convincing videos, speeches, and news reports of events that never happened. Deepfakes of world leaders delivering speeches they never gave are already technically feasible. The signs and wonders of the ancient text, the supernatural spectacles that cause the masses to bow, find a disturbing analog in the digital miracles of our era. There is also a more literal religious dimension to consider. Global interfaith movements are actively pushing towards a unified world religion, a spiritual common ground that transcends Christian, Muslim, and Jewish tradition. The Parliament of the World's Religions, the United Religions Initiative, and certain statements from global religious leaders suggest that theological distinctiveness is increasingly framed as a problem to be solved rather than a right to be protected. Revelation 13:15 says the second beast was given power to cause those who refuse to worship the image of the first beast to be killed. Today, economic exclusion, Losing your job, your bank account, your social credit score is the modern analog to death in a system where financial access equals survival. The beast from the earth wears a friendly face. It speaks the language of progress, inclusion, and unity, but it serves a master that demands absolute allegiance. The Mark of the Beast, 666, microchips, and the cashless economy. 666. Those three numbers have terrified the human imagination for 2 millennia. But what if the Mark of the Beast isn't a medieval horror? What if it's a fintech product? What if it's already in your wallet? Or already beneath your skin? Revelation 13, 16 through 18 contains what may be the most analyzed passage in all of prophetic literature. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. Two things stand out immediately. First, the mark is economic. It is not primarily about worship in a cathedral. It is about your ability to participate in the economy. Without the mark, you cannot buy groceries, pay rent, or access healthcare. Compliance is not enforced by soldiers at every door. It is enforced by financial exclusion. Second, the mark is universal. All people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave. This is not a regional policy. This is a global infrastructure. Now look at where the world is heading. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are being developed or piloted by over 130 countries, representing 98% of global GDP, according to the Atlantic Council's tracker. Unlike physical cash, a CBDC is programmable. This means governments and central banks can, in principle, attach conditions to your money. Your currency could be programmed to expire after 30 days. It could be restricted to approved vendors. It could be frozen instantly if you violate certain behaviors, political, social, or medical. China's digital yuan already includes features that allow spending to be restricted to specific geographic zones. Nigeria's e-Nigeria has been tied to government benefit programs, nudging citizens toward adoption. The EU's proposed digital euro has drawn fierce criticism from privacy advocates who warn of precisely this kind of programmable control. Meanwhile, subcutaneous microchip implants, chips inserted under the skin of the hand, are a growing reality. Swedish company Biohacks has implanted thousands of people. Elon Musk's Neuralink, while focused on neurological interfaces, points toward a trajectory where the boundary between human biology and digital identity collapses entirely. Biometric ID systems linked to financial access already exist in nations like India, where the Aadhaar system ties a 12-digit biometric ID to banking, welfare, taxes, and healthcare for over 1 billion people. The infrastructure for a mark-based economy is not theoretical. It is being constructed, tested, and normalized, brick by brick, update by update, policy by policy. The question is not whether it is technically possible, it is whether when the moment comes to make it mandatory, enough people will notice or care. Surveillance, digital control, and the architecture of the beast. Right now, somewhere, a camera is watching you. Your phone knows where you slept last night. Your bank knows what you ate for breakfast. Your search engine knows your fears, your desires, your doubts. Welcome to the surveillance economy. Welcome to the infrastructure of the beast. For the mark-based control system described in Revelation 13 to function globally, a foundational requirement must be met: total visibility. You cannot enforce economic exclusion if you cannot track economic behavior. You cannot reward compliance or punish resistance if you cannot monitor every transaction, every movement, every association. That infrastructure, almost unthinkably, already exists. The United States National Security Agency, exposed by Edward Snowden in 2013, operates PRISM and other mass surveillance programs capable of intercepting the digital communications of hundreds of millions of people without individual warrants. This is not speculation, it is documented, confirmed, and largely still operational. China's social credit system, perhaps the most openly Orwellian governance experiment in human history, assigns scores to citizens based on their financial behavior, social media activity, adherence to government policies, and even their associations with other people. Low scores result in bans from travel, education, and employment. High scores grant access and privilege. It is a real-world prototype of exactly the dynamic described in Revelation 13. In the West, the same architecture exists in corporate rather than government form, for now. Google processes over 8.5 billion searches per day and retains behavioral profiles on billions of users. Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp has built the most detailed psychological and social mapping system in history. Amazon's Alexa and Ring systems have converted private homes into nodes in a commercial surveillance grid. The distinction between corporate and government surveillance is increasingly meaningless, as both routinely share data through legal mechanisms, intelligence partnerships, and regulatory pressure. 5G infrastructure is not merely about faster video streaming. It is the nervous system of the Internet of Things, the technological framework through which billions of devices, including future implantables and wearables, will communicate simultaneously, enabling the real-time monitoring of physical and biological states at a scale never before possible. Facial recognition technology has advanced to the point where crowds can be scanned and individuals identified within seconds. This technology is already deployed in airports, stadiums, protest sites, and public transport systems across Asia, Europe, and North America. When integrated with a unified ID and financial system, it closes the final loop. Your face becomes your wallet, your passport, and your record. Revelation 13:17 says no one could buy or sell unless they had the mark. The Greek word used for mark, charagma, was also used in the Roman world to denote an official seal or imprint required for commerce and civic participation. The technology to implement a digital charagma at global scale is not on the drawing board. It is already in your pocket, on your wrist, and increasingly beneath your skin.
The pandemic, the Great Reset, and the coming of the beast. And then, a virus changed everything. In a matter of weeks, the entire world stopped. Borders closed, economies collapsed, and for the first time in recorded history, every nation on Earth agreed on one thing. What does Revelation say about that? Buckle up, because this is the chapter they don't want you to see. March 2020, the world as we knew it ended in slow motion. A virus emerged, its origins still fiercely disputed, and within weeks it had done something that no war, no revolution, no economic crisis had ever achieved. It united the planet under a single emergency framework. Not united in peace, not united in celebration, united in compliance. And look at who complied. The American and the Russian, geopolitical enemies for 70 years, followed the same lockdown protocols. The Chinese and the European, the rich and the poor, the powerful and the powerless, heads of state and homeless men on park benches, the fat and the thin, the black and the white, the educated and the unlettered. Revelation 13:16 had said it thousands of years earlier. All people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave. In 2020, that verse played out on every screen on Earth. Within months of the pandemic's declaration,
Governments worldwide implemented digital health passes, vaccine certificates tied to personal identity, determining who could enter restaurants, board planes, access hospitals, attend schools, and keep their jobs. For the first time in history, a person's right to participate in civic and economic life was tied to a biological compliance marker, digitally encoded, centrally managed, and globally coordinated. In September 2021, the World Economic Forum held its Great Reset Summit. Its theme, Build Back Better. Klaus Schwab wrote openly about using the pandemic as an opportunity to restructure the global economy, merge physical and digital identity, and install what he called stakeholder capitalism, a model where corporations and supranational institutions, not elected governments, set the agenda for humanity. The coordination was unprecedented. The WHO declared the emergency. National governments followed the directives. Pharmaceutical corporations were elevated to the status of global saviors. Dissenting voices, doctors, scientists, journalists were systematically removed from social media platforms. The ideological beast and the political beast worked in perfect synchrony. And here is what should chill you to the bone. The pandemic is over, but the infrastructure it built is still standing. The digital ID frameworks, the emergency executive powers, the global health treaty being negotiated at the WHO, the CBDCs being accelerated, the surveillance systems expanded under emergency orders that were never fully rolled back. The beast does not appear in a clap of thunder. It appears in a press conference. It appears in a terms of service update. It appears when your bank account is frozen because you donated to the wrong cause, as happened to Canadian truckers in 2022. It appears when a QR code determines whether your child can go to school. We are not saying the Antichrist has arrived. We are saying that the system is being assembled. The stage is being set, the infrastructure is in place, and every person alive today, regardless of nationality, language, religion, or social class, has already experienced a preview of what total global compliance looks and feels like. Revelation 13 does not end in despair. It ends with a warning and a call to wisdom. Verse 18 says, "Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast." Insight, discernment, awareness, that is exactly what this channel exists to provide. If this video opened your eyes, if even one connection you heard tonight made you stop and think, then you owe it to yourself to keep digging, because this is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of your awakening. Here is what I need you to do right now. Hit that like button, because in a world where algorithms bury the truth, your engagement is what keeps this message alive. Leave a comment below. Tell me, which part of Revelation 13 shocked you the most? The cashless system? The pandemic coordination? The surveillance grid? I read every single comment. Subscribe and ring the bell, because we're just getting started. In the next video, we are going to expose the identity of the 10 kings, the role of artificial intelligence in prophecy, and what you can do to protect yourself and your family in the days ahead. The beast is rising, but so is awareness, and awareness is the first act of resistance.